Okay, hello ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another live streaming of European Individual Women's Chess Championship 2013. Today, as every day, Mr. Suat Atalik is here to comment the games from the previous round. So today he will be commenting games from the 5th round, since the 6th round is ongoing at the moment. I see that Suat, you prepared some interesting games, so maybe you can just...
Always interesting, or in a scientific way, we try to make them interesting. Maybe the first one could be criticized.
Okay, so
we will
I'll leave you with your comments.
Thanks a lot. In the first one we will touch some issues. But first we have to check the game, and then we come to the point why I have chosen that game. So white is Melia Salome. I mean Salome Melia, or family name is Melia, famous Georgian player. Black is twice European champion Kateryna Lagno. She changed the name from Lagno to Lagno, I mean, probably having more Ukrainian accent. Once I was sitting with Viktor Lvovich Korchnoi in the opening ceremony of the Ukrainian tournament. He asked me like if I understand anything. I said, yeah, but not too much. He said, neither do I. So there is some difference with the Ukrainian and the Russian, especially by the alphabet that is like here also you use the Cyrillic alphabet.
They use the Latin.
Yeah, the Russians also. So okay, so let's check the game. Game proceeds. There's a Sicilian. Of this variation, which is also some Yugoslav variation. I mean, apart from Taimanov, who used to play with A6 and knight G7 in some lines, but this way, Matulovic, famous Dr. Marinelli, used to take this, and he's one of the guys who developed this line. I made you want to laugh about famous Dr. Marinelli. So he was, and then today the flag is carried by Miladinovic. So, just a typical Sicilian. There are a lot of lines. But in some of the Sicilians, some of the lines have more punch than the others. Some typical E4 players, they sharpen the game even in this stage, and Bishop E3 probably is the sharpest move in this line. Okay. I mean, Queen D2, you really expect here to play castles long. That white plays castles long, that's what you expect with in this line. F3 is slightly slower. There are some differences connected with B5 thrusts in this case. I myself, I'm not such a typical E4 player, although I played E4 against Miladinovic quite recently, and we had a draw. It was not. It was a little bit toothless, my play, and he's a difficult opponent, but he didn't choose the Sicilian. So one or two things I know about this line. I can claim that I know, but to know something, it's like gymnastics, you watch all these competitions, can you do all these things? Well, it's another story. And here the move chosen by Melia, it's interesting. F4. Usually it doesn't go very well with the queen on D2. You want to do this thing, you can even do it in this position. Like once again, all these issues we touch, theory develops. It's a pawn sacrifice. Knight D4, bishop D4, queen F4, rook F1. There is some theory about this. I may say that white has compensation. Mr. Miladinovic or Matulovic, maybe they won't share my belief, but it's an interesting line. What's the difference? Once again, it's always, very academical, where the queen belongs. If you don't take the pawn, I will place my queen to f3, which is an active square compared to d2. And with d2, usually we want to do this in the last years. I mean, with castles, which is an improved version, and then f3. You know, this is the many games went like this one. It's sort of an English attack. But this is something completely new. And this game has many different aspects for us to analyze. Chess-wise, out of chess, we will speak about the rules a little bit. But I really didn't like Black's reaction. I think White had a great edge in the game. And I believe Black should react by b5. This is more typical Taimanov move, say like. And indeed Taimanov himself had many games like, for instance, we go e5, Black goes knight g4, bishop g1, takes, bishop takes, bishop b7, castles, bishop c6, bishop e2, knight h6. I mean, none of these moves are forced, but the conception is very important. Black doesn't want to push d6, waits for it. This one, you know, it's in the it's in an appropriate way to play this defense, that we can use f5 square for the knight. Taimanov had tons of games, especially in the mid-70s. He really had many games coming from different system of this type. Here there is a play. I mean, if we ask this to Taimanov, actually he would like to have such a position. Obviously, it's not better for any side. It's a newborn line. It looks like by Melia's interesting play. But now, the moment that I criticized, comes this bishop d4, and usually bishop d4 doesn't do much harm. White played bishop d3 from f1, obviously. Black did some d6, a3. Came the exchange. Well, it's very interesting. I mean, according to the principles of chess, Black has exchanged the bad bishop, which would be inside of the pawn chain, possibly on e7. And looks like it heals a problem, but Black is passive. That's my opinion. Here is very important moment in the game. White could have done bishop e2, which would cause some problems for Black. My idea is simply to castle. People who toyed with G3 systems might have expected some sharp play by Dr. Marinelli type of approach with e5, but simply it doesn't work in a very similar way. In a really very similar way that with G3 lines happens almost the same. It's too short. I mean, now comes rook hf1. Bad. I like this b4 very much. It's not really controversial, because I will come to some moment in the game that I was only thinking about b4. And you can see Matulovic's line with taken on d4 against g3 systems with bishop c5, d6, e5, sort of improved compared to what Taimanov has done with Fischer out of his marvelous result, you know, the 6-0 result that, and this was a serious move, bishop e2 back. Why it was a serious move? The game proceeded in an interesting way. White castled long and black played knight g4. I mean, it's not dangerous for white. That was the position that I mean, which really intrigued me, if white can play b4. Or some interesting move like knight a4. I mean, not every time you can exchange these queens, because, I mean, this exchange of d6 to b6 square, that was another moment maybe white could really try this one. And I was also thinking, you know, like in a very sharp way, what happens if I allow to be forked? That's also very interesting, because let's get the things going on. We got forked, which is not a problem, because we will get some pawns from the other side. Many people would have preferred a vice position. Not very clear. It's really a very unclear position in my opinion. Castles long, queen takes h7, bishop c6 exchanges, exchange with this compact structure. I really cannot say anything about it. But now comes the important issue. So, Melia, I mean, I played with her at least one game, I remember, that she is this purely positional player, and for purely positional players, when there are some drastic problems like the fork on f2 appears, they try to prevent it, you know, immediately. So she goes rook d e1, black comes bishop d7, she goes bishop e2. For some reason or another, black enters here, which I find is a risky move. Now white could play, I don't know, g4, I mean, whatever you choose. So now comes with some strange sequence of moves. Comes back. I mean, also here, as one can see, is far from being forced. You can play rook e2. Minimum, yeah? You can play, I don't know, king b1. Allow to be forked, and is this knight f2, knight takes d3 exchange so dangerous? But, okay, they repeat the moves. Now we have to touch this issue of Sofia rules a little bit. So obviously, rules were created in Sofia. What was the aim of Sofia rules? To make chess more spectacular. Obviously, by doping control, it doesn't go, yeah, like that's spectacular. Now, there is this issue. I have seen also, once again, in this tournament, you may see many games of this type. Okay, two sisters, they played from Spain. In an earlier round. They came up with another repetition of moves. In Pirc, Robac and Ufimtsev defense, one of the defenses with long names, and Ufimtsev was really getting upset when they were calling it Pirc. and the game ends up by perpetual. Beautiful, yeah? But there are another, I don't know, maybe 100 games like this. So I believe that these two, they don't fall into the umbrella of Sofia rules. Both games should have been stopped. In Sofia rules, with which this tournament is played, there should be some forced nature of this repetition. I can tell you that one side, for instance, also famous by Spanish games, one side shouldn't be able to go out of the repetition. In that case, he should have a bad position, so he should be forced to repeat the moves. Famous inventory of Igor Zaitsev, trainer of Atalik, some sort of branch or a relative of Breyer system. Famous repetition, which cost Karpov some 1 point in his best years when he tried to play Vienna Open. 2 people did it. He won the Open, I believe, with 8 out of 9. He drew 2 games as black. But it was another time. There were not these rules. And if in this type of repetition, when the arbiter comes, you have to call the arbiter these days. If you start telling like, look, I am academically worse, here I have to maybe choose this move, you see that this is really not forced. And then the outcome of this draw becomes very subjective. Arbiter can stop, or arbiter can allow them to go with it. And I am for Sofia rules, in principle. It makes the game at least more attractive for the spectators, for everyone, and it also cuts the amount of deals, which may be a problem. But this is a newborn part of chess. In some way, by the rules. And now we will touch a newborn part of chess for the chess understanding with the next game.